Hi, I'm James Kotecki. You're here with me in the C-Space Influencer Studio here at CES 2019, and here with us is Kelly Abcarian, SVP Global Product Watch at Nielsen. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Once again, it's good to chat with you again. We chatted with you last year.
I'm happy to be a second timer.
Well, it's a very distinguished position to be in. But for those who have not heard from you before, or maybe seeing you for the first time, how do you introduce yourself and define the role that you have?
Sure, so I work in Nielsen and I lead our advanced advertising product strategy. So I'm really responsible for the television currency, the local TV, national and audio currencies, and really helping to transform and evolve where the consumer is heading and ultimately where our products need to deliver on promises and value for our clients.
And you're making news, I understand. I mean, recently you announced something big in addressable television, targeted advertising on television. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, we actually made two announcements right around the holidays. You know, the first one was really around the fact that we've been underway with a DAI pilot. And in the early summer timeframe, we announced that CBS was joining our pilot on DAI, right? Doing true addressable one-to-one on television.
Can you spell out that acronym?
Sure.
Acronym for us? Yeah.
Dynamic addressable insertion.
Yeah.
And so really being able to actually turn television from a one-to-many medium to one-to-one, right? And so right around the holidays, we announced that we expanded the pilot clients. A&E joined us, as well as we announced a strategic partner, MediaTek. For those of you who don't know what MediaTek does, many of you who do, you know, they are the largest chip manufacturer when it comes to smart television sets. They cover greater than 50% of smart TVs that are shipped globally, worldwide. And they, have 200 million sets in the living room. And so that partnership is going to allow us to really do strategic abilities to make it a more turnkey, make it an ability to really turn this on for both our clients, for OEMs, and to really bring this alive over the coming, 12 to 18 months.
So you've made some big advances here. Why was this not possible before? What changed?
Well, I think that technology always, evolves and consumers evolved, right? So there's an aspect of those two things that have to come together. And, you look at the growth of smart TVs, and connected devices. Homes today, about 70% of homes have one or more types of enabled smart devices in which to get content to the television glass or directly just through the television screen itself. And so that, that adoption curve, when you look back 2 or 3 years, it really wasn't, it was about a third of homes. And so when you go out to...
In just a couple of years, we went from a third to 70%.
Yeah, I mean, probably 3 years ago, it was about a third, and now we're at, 70%. I mean, you go to a store today, you can't not buy a smart TV. And they've made it very easy for consumers to enable that smart TV, right? You don't need an engineer in which to try to figure out how to get it onboarded to the Wi-Fi and to really get it connected. And when you think about it, so many consumers have access to an SVOD subscription, which is another consumer dynamic really driving that adoption curve and growth. And almost 64% of consumers have one or more SVOD services. And so they want access to those streaming services, they want access to linear television, they want a different consumer experience. So those things on the consumer side are driving it. And then on the technology side, really just solving some of the hard complexities of being able to actually bring about an ad on a linear broadcast is, something that's very hard to do. It sounds very simple. It sounds like something that should have been solved by now, but there's a lot of complexity.
Things that sound the simplest can often be the hardest ones.
That's so true. And so, I think that's what's allowed those two things, because you need to have kind of consumers adopting in order to enable advertisers and media owners to monetize. And then you need the technology capabilities to be there and the players to come and work together across the ecosystem. So I think you're seeing those dynamics start to play out, and we're really excited about how we're bringing together this advanced advertising group inside of Nielsen that's bringing Gracenote and Nielsen tech and people and resources to bear so that we can really, change the evolution of where television heads.
And speaking of ads, there's this thing called total ad ratings, which I know that you're involved in. Tell me about that. What does that mean? What's different about that?
Sure. So, we launched total ad ratings back in 2012, interesting enough, and you could deduplicate television with PC. And at that time, that is what many clients needed to understand. How do I move money, across an across media way? And it seems like well, weren't people trying to solve mobile then? Well, mobile was just really coming on the rise at that point. The advertising dollars hadn't quite caught up with the usage, in complete ways, and there was the measurement aspect that also needed to get into play. And so what we announced is really exciting because now for the first time we're taking that marketer frustration and challenge of how do I know how to actually execute a cross-media buy, and how do I get data that gives me that same confidence that I know that incrementality around that buy. And so we have now included mobile impressions deduplicated with television, and YouTube is coming to the table that allows any advertiser to deduplicate television directly with the YouTube, vast inventory. And as well as connected devices, right? So it's a true kind of complete consumer picture view around ways in which consumers are fragmenting and accessing content across the day, across devices. And so it's pretty exciting because now the industry has a currency grade quality campaign rating comparable to the way in which television has been measured for decades to allow them to truly not only understand kind of the delivery, but that true deduplication so that they can really optimize and really ensure that they're hitting the consumer with the right reach and frequency across the ways in which the consumers want to be reached.
We talked last year about the importance of getting good data in a world where there could be false data, faulty data, bot data, maybe not all these people are actually people. We talked about how the Nielsen panel idea of the kind of the classic Nielsen panel is a way to kind of circumvent that. Are we moving to a world where we don't need the panels as much anymore? The panels look different, or is that still an important part of your strategy?
Yeah, panels are going to be an important part for forever. Because if you think about it, what big data does, it solves for two key things. It solves for the what is someone watching? And it solves for the how. How are they watching? On what device are they watching on? What it doesn't solve for is the who. Who actually is being reached behind the screen, and what do marketers care about? They care about the who.
Right.
And they want to have a trusted truth and validation set, because though big data can guess at the who or have some estimate of the who, a panel can be a true set to validate the validation of all the who's.
We should probably remind people what the panel actually is.
Yeah, sure.
How does it actually work?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time curating a very highly representative panel across the US, and it is done in a statistical probability way to ensure that we're reflecting all ethnicities, all races, all incomes, basically ensuring that every TV household that is out there is fully represented in that panel, in that viewing behavior, in that audience. And that's critically important because, if you think about diversity and inclusion, programmers absolutely have an imperative to ensure that the talent on screen, the programming is relating to the consumers in the marketplace. Advertisers want to ensure that their diverse messaging is hitting the consumers. And so all of this comes together when you have true sets to ensure that even when you're instrumenting big data, that you have a true set to either calibrate it with or to cover the gaps that big data doesn't often cover, right? Big data is just that. It's really big. It's really exciting. It's really big. But 9 million, sets of, call it Vizio smart TVs, or call it Samsung TVs, or call it, Roku connected devices or set-top boxes, in the Comcast world. They still only represent a segment of the population of consumers that have that. And they often have biases around the types of consumers that engage with and buy a Roku device versus an Apple TV. They could be distributed across the entire US, but that doesn't make them representative of all ethnicities and races and income levels. And Nielsen takes, for many, since we've started measuring television back in the 50s, representation is really, really important to marketers, and it's important to programmers, and it's important to the foundation of the ecosystem at large.
So based on the data that you do have, last year you had some kind of staggering statistics about Stranger Things on Netflix.
Yeah.
Do you have any fun data as we close out this conversation to share with us about other TV shows or movies and content?
Yeah, well, we released some numbers on Bird Box, which was this latest hit coming out of Netflix over the holidays. So when you look at it, they had an amazing audience, right? So 4 million reach across every single day across the first 10 days. And then their average audience size across that 7-day window was 24.2 million people. I mean, that's sizable, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at the kind of diversification of that audience, that's interesting as well, because they had 36% of people 18 to 34 who watched it. And they also had an interesting split around diversity. Hispanics and African Americans made up 46% of the audience. And so, Netflix continues to kind of be a place in which people want to watch great content. And so, we continue to, want to share those stories around the types of things that the SVOD services are bringing to the table, and how is that having an effect on consumer behavior? How is that affecting maybe linear television program over that holiday window when people were consuming all those minutes of a really great show that got launched? I mean, you've seen the viral buzz.
Right.
People are doing all kinds of crazy things with the memes and the putting the blindfolds around them.
Oh,
I
like
have not done that.
Bird Box references.
Yes,
okay.
the Bird Box references. I haven't done that myself. I wouldn't recommend that, and I think Netflix doesn't recommend it either.
Okay. Well, there is so much to talk about. There's so much to watch, and there's so much to continue the conversation with. And I wish we had more time.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you being here, Kelly Abcarian of Nielsen. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Here today, and thank you for watching us here in the C-Space Influencer Studio here at CES 2019. I'm James Kotecki. Keep it right here because more great conversations are just ahead.